Greetings and welcome back to another quick tutorial for systems. This time we're looking over the menu and control panel for the Raspberry Pi, Raspbian, and again talking about how it works on other systems. So with that, on Raspberry Pi, in the top left corner you'll see a little raspberry. You click on it and there is your menu. On Windows there's a little menu bar. Windows button in the bottom, normally in the bottom left. I think Windows 11 is now kind of in the middle. So the concept is there's a menu bar button, you click on it and it expands out to the menu. Now what they have in them can vary and how they're organized can vary, but basically they're supposed to be quick access to your files and programs, mostly to your programs, right? So like in this case, the Raspberry Pi has a couple programming IDEs, the internet, some sound and video programs, some graphic programs, some accessories. You can see calculator, file manager, SD code, and this is where you get the terminal. Again, depending on what you have, Xterm, Bash, might be called different things. But then we get down to preferences, and this is kind of the control panel for this. Now Windows, you can just normally click on the start menu, type in control panel, will take you to the different options that it has that you can play with. One of the big ones I'm going to go over is the Raspberry Pi configuration. And this allows you to change a lot of the stuff. And I think I mentioned this, or will mention this in another video. This is where you can go back and change the localization. So if you accidentally, keyboard's not working right because you have a Great Britain keyboard, you can come in here and fix that, time zone, stuff like that. A lot of this stuff is more advanced, so if you don't know what you're doing, don't start overclocking your computer. There are some features that you may want. This class will probably eventually turn on SSH, but at this point we don't need to know what that is. Otherwise, again, depending on what you need, you can turn on. We're not in this class. We're not going to turn on the camera, but that might be something you want to turn on, is to enable the camera piece of the Raspberry Pi. Again, we might come back and enable SSH later. And then display, again, we mentioned the black box when I first set this all up. So this is where you can disable, enable, kind of look at the different, set your resolution. This is, your display control panel pieces. And then finally, if you need to change your password, the host name, different thing, boot to desktop is this. This is the desktop. If you click CLI, that's the command line shell, which essentially is the terminal. You essentially just get to the terminal. And again, there's a lot that you can, and there's a lot of servers as we get through this, to different pieces of this. That's how you do it. And then other pieces. But this is really, where you find a lot of these programs when you install it. Like this simple screen recorder wasn't here when I first got the Raspberry up and running. I downloaded it and it put itself here in for me, so that was nice. But you can do other different pieces like keyboard and mouse. This is the control panel for the mouse. I can make it so this accelerates, moves faster, listens to the double click. So is it click, 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 right? It just depends on what you're doing. And also you can make it left-handed, swap the mouse buttons around for you. Keyboard, same concept. So that is what it looks like on a Raspberry Pi. We're not going to go into every single little setting that you can change. Just realize when they say control panel and whatnot, you need to find the right piece to it. And again, on Windows, it's the start menu, type it in. But when I go, because again, this class is going to mainly focus on using Raspberry Pi, this is where you're going to find everything. So when I say click on the menu button to get to whatever, this is where you find the menu button, and then you can go to the programming. It's probably one of the few things we'll kind of look into. But again, as we download programs, they'll start showing up here as well. Otherwise, we'll go over the last piece, which won't be much because it's just the internet. As you can see, click on that and that's the internet. But we've covered the terminal, the folders, now the menu, so you really have a good understanding of what there is the Raspberry Pi. The last piece that we have, and again, Windows has this as well, is there's a little bit more control panel. So if you need to turn on off Bluetooth, I have a Bluetooth speaker hooked up right now. This is the internet, so this is where you can get the control panel settings for the internet. Again, not everything is found this way. Sometimes you need to go over here, and then volume settings as well. So that's the Raspberry Pi setup, the Raspbian setup in a nutshell. Not a whole lot to it, but that's where you get it. And just realize that Windows, Mac, other Linux versions, they all have this. You just have to find it, right? And if you don't know how to find it, there's a whole thing on the internet. Just Google. You need to know what you have. Again, you need to understand that right now we're running Raspbian. So if I Google something for how do I find this control setting or how do I change this setting, again, on Raspbian. And the more you know what version, Buster, whatever it might be, the better. So that's that. Some other control panels might have power options, folder options, user accounts is another big one. There's not a lot in here. Now again, I could use command line and probably do a lot of it. But one of the main control panel on other systems is users, because you'll have different users. But Raspberry Pi is kind of designed for one person to come on and just use it as their computer. So it doesn't have a whole lot of user options. But that's another good one. And we went over most of the other key ones, display and whatnot. So with that, that's all I have for you on the menu and then control panels. With that, have a good one. We'll see you next tutorial.